Golfing fans, welcome back to the channel. Brought to you in association with betting.co.uk. I'm your host Ginger Joe and I'm back again with my weekly golf selections for you to take a look at. And I'm really excited for this week's events as we've got 3 tour events to turn our attentions to. And this week I'm going to be playing the win singles, but I'm going to be playing the each way doubles and the each way trebles as well. So currently this season we're actually sat at 398 points in the profit, but I'm going to put a fair few of those on the line with 3 events to take a look at this week. We're going to start by looking at the PGA Tour with the Mexico Open. We'll then move on to the Korea Championship on the DP World Tour. Then we'll finish off by taking a look at the LIV Golf in Singapore. So 3 really good events. I'm going to start off with the Mexico Open where you can actually get 10 places available with Coral and Ladbrokes. And I definitely advise taking advantage of those placings there. Now my number 1 selection is actually going to be Ben and Arn at 33 to 1. Now there's a few factors to take into consideration whilst picking your selections for the Mexico Open. I think the first thing is definitely going to be the layout of a track. You need to be really long off the tee and you must have a really good short game too. You're going to not get away with too much here despite it being quite open off the tee. The other factor is the fact that Jon Rahm is just 9-4 favourite to win this event. And to be honest, he should be really hard to beat. But there's definitely some players that can contest on their best form. With 10 places available, I'm going to be brave and sidestep Jon Rahm in the hunt for some better value. Now, Ben Arn, he's a fantastic player. He seems to be able to shoot low, whatever type of course that he seems to be playing at. And his fantastic part of his game to me is his long game. It's just superb. And in the recent weeks, he's been in really, really good form. He played his part last week in the Zurich doubles. And I think 33 to 1 is looking like a really big, juicy price tag. Prior to the Zurich, he finished tied 6th for the Valero Open. I think he's going to go really well again this week. And he's a player that's outside the top 100. Should definitely be in the top 100 on his best form. And I think he's going to be a really good shout at 33 to 1. My second selection is going to be the Englishman, Aaron Rai. Probably a player I haven't paid enough attention to in recent weeks, but he keeps catching my eye in these big events and he's just fearless. He attacks everything. He's rather underrated if you ask me as well. In recent weeks, he's been one of those players you can definitely see shooting some real low scores. I think Aaron's approach play is going to be real vital. He's very good from 150 yards and in. His vital good iron play is going to set up for this track really, really well. It's definitely one thing that he's got in the bag. And he's already a 2-time winner on the DP World Tour. And I think he's good enough to win on the PGA Tour as well. I think he's quite an interesting contender here. And again, with 10 places available at a quarter of the odds, he could definitely be worth another look at 25 to 1. My third and final player for the Mexico Open is going to be Patrick Rodgers at 25 to 1. Now, Patrick was a bit of a phenomenon when he was a younger player. He was very, very good and destined for greatness. And even though he hasn't necessarily fulfilled that potential to his fullest, he's become a top player and seemingly in the form of his life of late as well. He was leading the Valero early on and finished a clear 5th before playing really well in the RBC Heritage to give himself another top 20 finish. There's not too much to add about his chances other than the fact that this track should suit him really, really well. And there's definitely worse 25 to 1 shots out there than Patrick Rodgers. Moving on to the DP World Tour, we've got the Korean Championship at the Jack Nicklaus Design Course over 7,470 yards. And this is some seriously good course. Pretty interested to see how the scoring is going to turn out here as well. It looks like a really tough track. I had a look at the course map, the course flyover, and again, another track. You must be a really good iron player here, and you definitely need to be finding the flat part of these greens because they're very undulated. Now, for the DP World Tour, you can get 7 places again with Corals and Ladbrokes. Got to keep it consistent if we're going to be playing the each way doubles and trebles. And I'm going to start off here with 4 selections. So quite fancy a few in the DP World Tour, becoming my favourite tour to bet on at the moment because I've got a little bit in common with some of the players here. But we're going to start off by looking at Yannick Poole at 20 to 1. Now, over the DP World Tour, they actually head over to Korea for this, and the Jack Nicklaus course is probably going to suit Yannick Poole really well. Looking like he's probably the best iron player out there on the DP World Tour at the moment, and it really is important that you're going to be trying to find these flat spots this week. It's going to be absolutely vital. You really do need a good iron player, and he's pretty damn solid with the putter this season too. He's the player that's probably the most impressive for me out of the Germans this year. I've really fancied quite a few of them. You got Yannick Poole, you got Marcel Siem, you got Maximilian Kiefer, Marcel Schneider. You got some really, really good pulls, and also Nikolai Bakum, who actually won on tour a few weeks ago as well. But Yannick Poole, his iron play is just superb. He's got a very simple motion, one movement back, one movement forward. I think that's really going to play into his hands this week. It's going to be real windy conditions based on the forecast, but he's already won this season. He's rapidly becoming one of my favourite players, and with that dialed in iron play, I think he keeps it nice and simple but effective. 20 to 1, he's going to be my number 1 pick for the DP World Tour. Now, my second selection is going to be Richard Mansell. Now, Richard's actually a player I've been following very, very closely, and I happen to play with him on the Euro Pro Tour myself. He's absolutely going to break his maiden tour win sooner or later, and he's threatened to do so on more than one occasion. He just needs to keep it together on the final round, which seems to be where he has actually dropped a few of those shots, but he's absolutely class. Now, I actually remember playing with himself and Thomas Anderson at Enfield on the Jamaica Tour, and I was actually chuffed myself to shoot 3 under par, but Richard and Thomas actually put my score to shame by shooting 10 under and 12 under in the same group as me in just the 18 holes, and that managed to put them in first and second to finish the day. Since then, Richard's gone on to win the Euro Pro Tour. He's done the same on the Challenge Tour now, and he's actually going to be a force to reckon with on the DP World Tour really soon. And he seems to now and then struggle in almost basic conditions, but when there's a bit of wind, something just to switch his side off mentally, I think he starts to play very, very well. And with a bit of wind likely to be this week, I think that he's going to be really hard to keep out of the place. He's a really good iron player, and it definitely won't be long till he's got another trophy in his hands, but the first of which will be on the DP World Tour. Now, my third player for the Korean Championship is going to be Antoine Rosner at 20-1. Now, he's become one of my regular picks of mine on tour, and I really do admire his game. He's solid as they come and doesn't necessarily have a weak part to his game as well. This year, he's been very consistent. Again, he finished 6th in the Singapore. He was then 5th in the Thailand Classic as well, and then finished 3rd in the SDC Championship just a few weeks ago. And I imagine he's going to be really hard to knock out of the places. So he's a very consistent player, and I think he's likely to give us a very good run for our money at 20-1. My fourth and final player for the DP World Tour is going to be Jordan Smith, another player that I know quite well. He was actually a club pro down at Bowen, and he's just skyrocketed since then from turning club pro to tour pro, and seems to have an abundance of natural talent. He hits the ball an absolute mile. He isn't the most creative shot at 14-1. However, I think he's going to be a really good, interesting addition to the 3 players that I put up for this week already. And I think it just makes the book look a little bit stronger. He, like Richard Mansell, won the Euro Pro Tour, and he did the same on the Challenge Tour. He's just a player that seems to be getting better and better as the season goes on. No point to originality with this one, but I do think that this big hitter is going to be there or thereabouts come the finishing line. Then moving on to the LIV Golf at Singapore, we've got the Singapore Classic with only 5 places available here. And I'm actually going to put up 2 selections that we put up in last week's event on the LIV Golf in Adelaide. And I've got 2 players, but I'm going to start off with the favourite here, Cameron Smith at 10-1. Again, not very original, but he seems to be as hungry as ever for victories on tour. And he was very solid to win, to play well in his home country last week. And I think he's going to do well to back that up again. I don't buy all of this nonsense that he hasn't had the best prep for this, playing in his hometown last week. He's more than professional, Cam Smith, and comes into this field with an obvious chance. I think he would have actually liked to have peaked a little bit earlier this season, but he's coming good at the right time, and I think he's going to go really close again this week's event too. And then my final player is going to be Patrick Reed at 16-1. Now, Patrick is going to be my final selection of this week. And like Cam Smith, he got us some place money last week. And again, nothing too flashy about his game, but I think he can back up that performance again this week. He's a major player. He's a major winner, who's been in really good form. And whether you love him or hate him, he's always going to do really well. And he's got the game to go to battle with here as well. This track's probably going to suit Patrick very, very well indeed. And even though 16-1's a little bit short in the betting, they both managed to get us some place money last week and would be my final selection of this week's golf events. So just to recap on those selections, in the PGA Tour, the Mexico Open, we've got Ben Anan at 33-1, Aaron Wright at 33-1, and then Patrick Rodgers at 25-1. In the Korea Championship, we've got Yannick Paul at 20-1, Richard Mansell at 28-1, Jordan Smith at 14-1, and then Antoine Rosner at 20-1 as well. And then on the LIV Golf circuit in Singapore, we've got Cam Smith at 10-1, and then Patrick Reed at 14-1 as well. As advised, take the win singles and the each way doubles and each way trebles, and hopefully we can have a nice bit of return heading back into next week as well. What I am going to look to do is put up a couple of wild card selections as well, just some singles at some massive prices, because there are a few that have caught my eye this week, but I'm going to pop those in my free group chat, and again, you can come and join me there using the free link in the description below. But again, thank you so much for joining me on this week's episode. I'll be back again next week with some more selections. Goodbye for now.